Number 2, SEL and GCED curriculum in the context of UNESCO's Topics and Learning Objectives, TLO. What is the curriculum? We can think of the syllabus that we write or the national curriculum, which provides general guidelines on the educational contents to be taught. According to UNESCO, the curriculum is a systematic and intended packaging of competencies that learners acquire through organized learning experiences. We generally think of the curriculum as the documented process where the detailed educational teaching and learning phases are indicated. Therefore, we consider this kind of curriculum as an intended, written, and official version. The typical definition of the curriculum framework includes the following aspects: formal settings such as schools, learning objectives, subjects to be taught, teaching and learning contents, syllabuses, and educational materials such as textbooks, handouts, video resources, tests, assessment tools for evaluation, etc. However, not only referring to the formal circumstances of education, the spectrum of the curriculum can vary depending on how we define the term itself. The curriculum includes all knowledge, skills, and attitudes that students expect to acquire in certain circumstances beyond just the classroom level. Thus, the curriculum not only facilitates students' academic learning, but also can support the learner's acquisition of social values, attitudes, and perspectives. These days, various conflicts, wars, poverty, and hatred are increasing more than ever. In this context, the curriculum has been required to establish a framework of promoting understanding towards differences, sustainable development, and learning to live together, more than just pursuing the academic knowledge. With this regard, UNESCO maintains that a good curriculum contributes to learning various social skills and competencies, such as tolerance, peace-building, justice, etc. In addition, this curriculum also enables learners to enhance their personal development, such as self-respect, confidence, motivation, etc. Now, let's suppose we would like to develop a curriculum that can meet those requirements. What should we do? This is the point where the Global Citizenship Education (GCED) curriculum intervenes. We know that GCED curriculum aims to promote a culture of peace and raise students' awareness as global citizens. We've also learned that social-emotional learning helps learners with their personal development, such as self-awareness, social relationships, responsible decision-making, etc. So let's see how the GCED curriculum can be developed and how SEL is specifically addressed in the GCED curriculum. In 2015, UNESCO published a guideline on teaching GCED, Topics and Learning Objectives, TLO. It has been developed to provide various ways of applying GCED concepts into learning circumstances, allowing educators to adapt the teaching methods according to their context. In this guideline, GCED presents concrete learning goals according to 4 elements based on 3 learning domains of GCED. Based on these learning objectives, TLO divides the learning level into 4 elements: pre-primary and low primary, upper primary, lower secondary, and upper secondary, and designs to deepen learning various topics per each education level. Among them, how can SEL be reflected in the GCED curriculum? First of all, the socio-emotional aspect suggests outcomes that learners want to achieve through GCED. Learning outcomes means the knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes that learners can acquire and demonstrate as a result of GCED. In these learning outcomes of SEL, learners experience a sense of belonging to common humanity, sharing values and responsibilities based on human rights. Also, learners can develop attitudes of empathy, solidarity, and respect for differences and diversity. Based on the learning outcomes, TLO suggests key learner attributes of SEL, the qualities that learners should acquire concerning the key learning outcomes. Cultivate and manage identities, relationships, and feelings of belongingness. Share values and responsibilities based on human rights. Develop attitudes to appreciate and respect differences and diversity, such as culture, language, gender, religion, etc. Based on the key learning outcomes and key learner attributes, SEL is concretized under three following topics: different levels of identity, different communities people belong to and how these are connected, difference and respect for diversity. And under these topics, learning objectives provide more detailed criteria on achieving goals of socio-emotional aspects of GCED. Learning objectives are divided into 4 levels of age groups: pre-primary, lower primary, upper primary, lower secondary, and upper secondary. These levels are determined by the difficulties and depth of the concepts to be taught. For example, teaching the concept of identity in the aspect of SEL in GCED starts from a basic step in which students can recognize the relationship with the world and themselves. Through the consecutive learning stages, the learning of identity is divided and deepened into more specific steps, which eventually leads to the teaching of peaceful cooperating with different social groups. Likewise, these learning stages can also be applied to other 2 topics of the socio-emotional aspect in GCED. Since these educational phases act as a guideline and reference, it is recommended for educators to selectively adapt the SEL in the GCED curriculum and plan their lessons according to their teaching learning context. Now let's suppose that we've established the overall structure of SEL teaching in the GCED curriculum. How can we deliver it in educational settings? How can it be enhanced? We can also get ideas from TLO. TLO suggests the way to effectively implement teaching methods of GCED and SEL in the classroom. The first thing to be considered is the role of educators. Educators are the media of curriculum, so the role of teachers and the quality of teaching and learning strategies teachers use are extremely important. Therefore, educators should have a good understanding of transformative pedagogical methods of GCED teaching. Moreover, educators should be a facilitator who can encourage learners to actively participate in the class, develop critical thinking, and therefore successfully acquire the skills and knowledge. Along with the efforts of individual teachers, support from colleague teachers, school management system, and the overall educational system do matter. Second, learning environments should also be considered. Educators should ensure all learners to be included and engaged in the learning activities. Educators should respect learners' diverse backgrounds and make the learning process that fosters collaboration, respectful communication, and other social skills. In particular, educators need to carefully consider the various factors of learners that can affect the inclusive learning circumstances, such as each learner's physical and mental features, race, culture, religion, gender, etc. Educators should also focus on the delivery of GCED through teaching and learning practices. In this regard, a learner-centered approach has to be implemented to ensure the inclusive and interactive classroom. Utilizing proper learning resources activities is also essential. Educators should use various sources to let learners develop diverse perspectives and understand the concept of GCED based on multiple contexts. Furthermore, proper assessment and evaluation should be made to support learners' effective learning of GCED to check if the learning objectives have been successfully delivered to learners. In this evaluation, self-assessment, peer feedback, teacher assessment, and other ways can be included. Not only considering establishing the curriculum of SEL in the context of GCED, but the concept of SEL itself must also be contextualized per different societies. According to NISM Global Briefs, the conceptualization of the SEL framework can differ from each country society's cultural and social context. Therefore, the SEL framework should be developed according to each different context through enough empirical researches. Thus, we can see that SEL has already been importantly addressed in the guidelines of teaching GCED topics, and learning objectives. Therefore, if we establish the proper SEL framework and set the curriculum referring to these guidelines, SEL can be effectively achieved in the GCED curriculum.